Well, thank you again, my colleague from Louisiana, for leading us here tonight and getting the message out to the American people that this doesn't have to be this way. What we're going through, what we are all going through together, with the increased costs, with shortages, is unnecessary. This isn't caused by nature with a hurricane or a tornado or a fire or an earthquake or even a war, although some are trying to point to an action by Putin and Russia and Ukraine being responsible for everything. This is government-caused situation we're seeing with inflation, with fuel and energy. It doesn't have to be this way. So what's really disheartening as a representative of folks is that we know our constituents, good people, are suffering from it, from inflation. It's impacting everyday Americans, Northern Californians, in my district, everybody. First-hand accounts from people in my district who are struggling financially due to these rising prices and inflation. This inflation is a tax on every American, like my colleagues have been saying, and we're hoping people will hear. Rural Americans are feeling additional financial struggles, even more so probably than their urban dwellers, but maybe it's the same, maybe just different. Rural residents tend to drive more. They have to drive farther distances to do what they do. If they work on a ranch, they live on a ranch, a timber operation, a mining operation, or they just live out. Maybe they're a park ranger. Maybe they take care of the parks. Many reasons why you would live in a rural part of the state of California or any part of America. Well, that puts more mileage on your vehicle, uses more gas. You may tend to have a four-wheel drive vehicle live in those areas because you might have snow, other reasons that you have to have a vehicle that has a little more oomph, a little more ability to get around than perhaps one in Southern California like that. So likely they're going to use a little more gasoline in order to go where they need to go. And getting gasoline delivered to areas like that costs a little more. It's a little higher. My Northern California district, it's not uncommon to see $6 on the sign for diesel or even premium gasoline. $6. Routinely $6 for diesel. And a lot of people drive diesel vehicles. They have less retail options nearby. Their stores ship from further distances, so the trucks that brought it, if you got it, a truck brought it is the saying. They got to ship farther to get there. So that store might need to have just a little higher price to cover shipping. So further shipping, all these things just add up for especially rural residents on that. But they have a reason why they are rural residents, and when we need them to be for producing what they produce in rural areas that we all use. So a couple residents in Northern California, I would like to share what their issue is, what their struggle is. First story is about an elderly woman from Redding in Northern California, which is one of the large 2 cities in my district. She's had a tough life and grew up in an abusive household. She's always, though, very smart and very artistically talented, actually. But as she aged, she began dealing with mental illness and confided that she has begun to think of death as an alternative to her struggling. What a cheery situation for her. After her mental health struggles became too much, it forced her out of the workforce. She began living on a fixed income of $900 a month. At $900, money's already tight, but she's had even more setbacks. Now, like most people, she has a family pet. She has a dog. Well, that dog happened to get sick, like happens, and the bill for that was $500. Where's she going to get $500 on a $900 monthly income? Maybe she can spread it out over time if the veterinarian works with her. So she ended up having to sell her truck for $180 because she could no longer afford the gasoline and needed money to pay utility and other bills. Recently, she ran out of food completely and went without food for several days. Even the local food bank, God bless them, they're doing really good work and they're becoming even more stretched and more tapped. The food bank had run out. She ended up calling a friend who bought some groceries for her. She said the cost of everything is so expensive now that even cutting out spending any personal money on personal things or elective things or maybe luxuries by having, maybe a little meat on your plate, she's still unable to pay her bills. She doesn't have cable or TV. She listens to the free books on tape from the Library of Congress. She said she hopes and holds, she holds President Biden directly responsible for what is happening. The President and the policies of the majority here in Congress and even in Sacramento, in my home state in California. She does hope that President Biden can hear how the economy doesn't work for low-income people. I think she understands that trillions and trillions of dollars of debt, spending money you don't have, printing more money, inflation causing money, isn't going to get her out of it either. We have to have an economy that works for normal people, productive people, and so folks like her can be helped. Even after all this, though, you got to admire, she says that she considers herself lucky because she still has a roof over her head. Now, another story in a different sector is about a family who lived just south of the Oregon border in what's known as the Klamath Basin, Klamath River area. A lot of farmers up there. There's issues with the dams that are in place that help make low-cost hydroelectric power. So one day after the public comment period closed on the Klamath Dam destruction that is being put in place with the help of the federal government and a lot of lawsuits, this was in April, the family patriarch suffered a stroke and was found by his children unconscious and unresponsive. And if you don't think the stress of being put out of business by a government that's taken away your water, your electricity, and driving your costs through the roof wouldn't have a part in that stroke for that family member, the family patriarch, you're not paying attention. He was airlifted to Klamath Falls in Oregon, which is only a 15-minute flight, but a 2.5-hour drive. You're getting the picture, I think, of what rural issues we're dealing with, the challenges for people trying to farm so the country has food in this case. Now, every week, the entire family has to make the trek back up to Klamath Falls since it's the closest specialist in occupational therapy. So you schlep that trek back and forth with expensive fuel and a long distance. But they need to do it in order to do what they do. They need to stay the night in a hotel since the drive over and back is a little too much to do in one day given the appointment schedule. So the husband's only getting a little less than $500 a month from disability for the family to live on. And each week they must make that 5-hour trip, gas, hotels, meals, etc. Of course, these costs are devastating to them. Inflation is driving much of this cost. Things are going to happen to people, we know, but at least making them a little more affordable by having an economy that works for the American people, especially lower and middle income folks that are suffering firsthand from the high cost of everything, driven by government policy that's hurting them. This Green New Deal stuff is not an answer for low and middle income people. Forcing everybody to get an electric car. Let them eat cake is what it practically sounds like when our transportation secretary says, we could just replace these electric cars. Now we have to endure some pain. Nobody in Washington is enduring any pain. Not in the cabinet, not in Congress. No one would feel sorry for us anyway, and they shouldn't. It's the American public that's enduring the pain while people just callously say, well, you know, these high prices on fuel are just part of the transition to an electric future. Well, in my home state, electricity barely stays on as it is now because they're pulling out the hydroelectric dams I just mentioned on the Klamath, the water they're running out of Lake Oroville and Lake Shasta down through the river and out through the delta that doesn't make hydroelectric power during part of the year. Lake Oroville, for example, ran out of power, ability to make hydropower because the lake had reached historic lows in its entire history. We're seeing that getting ready to happen in Nevada on Lake Mead. Deadpool soon. These are government policies that drive inflation, the cost of food, the cost of electricity, and everything that's harming the American public. So I have to ask the question, once again, to President Biden, his cabinet, and even the majority in these two houses here, whose side are you on? The Green New Deal, a la-di-da agenda, or the struggles of the American people? And I hope the American public asks that question of themselves. Who's trying to help and who's causing the harm? Think about that really hard. I ask you, we're not here just for kicks. I'm not here because I love to wear a suit. We're fighting for you. We're fighting for what's right. So please, please pay attention and decide for yourself who's trying to help and who's causing the harm. So, Mr. Johnson, I know you're doing great work by helping us with this message, and if if people aren't going to pay attention to what's really causing it, I don't know how we can help them, man.
Yeah.
But please take this away and do what we can. We're fighting here in Congress. We're fighting to get the message out and put policy reforms in place that indeed are going to help. So thank you, sir, for the time tonight and for your faithful efforts here.
I thank you, my friend, and for your faithful efforts and being such a clarion call of voice.